Great. My name's Nicole Underwood. I'm the chapter president for Smoky Mountain. And as Laura and I were putting together the agenda, Heather Hubbard Morgan from our chapter, Smoky Mountain, volunteered a Google form part of this CIM. And Heather came to our chapter recruited by the same person that I was recruited by. So we were somewhat kindred spirits from the get-go. And she just brought another depth to our chapter to be able to work within online finance. And Heather, I'm going to let you give your background quickly because there's so many letters behind your name. I don't want to get them wrong.
It doesn't matter. All that matters is I'm CISV.
You are, but you bring a skill set that isn't a normal skill set. So it really added a lot of value to our ability to just handle things online and virtually and easier, I think. So here's Heather Morgan.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm looking forward to this, but and I appreciate the introduction. I have been involved with CISV for about a year and a half, though I've known about the organization long before that. I have three boys. They're 9, 11, and 13. My oldest son has traveled with CISV now 3 times. We'll be applying for his 4th travel opportunity in the summer. And then my middle son attended Village this most recent summer and also looks forward to applying to a new the next adventure next summer. So we're all in and we're very happy to be here. And I've been asked to present to you guys about Google Forms. And as most of you probably know, it's a free, powerful tool to help gather information like feedback or surveys. And it pairs very nicely with other programs in the Google suite, including Google Sheets is the one that I really would like to, spend some time on today. But before we get started, it would be really helpful to me to have an understanding of what you guys already know about Google Forms and Google Sheets. So if you wouldn't mind, come off the video just long enough to raise your hand so I can see your responses. So just like raise your actual physical hand. You don't have to do the digital hand. So I got a couple questions here. Please raise your hand if you have a Google account. All right. Okay, we're good. Please raise your hand if you have created a Google form before. 1, 2, 3. Okay, most everybody. Okay, Joanna. Okay, great. We'll spend some time there. Raise your hand if you have linked your Google form responses to Google Sheets. Okay. Okay. I love it, Julie. I love that. Okay. Please raise your hand if you've analyzed Google form responses using formulas or features like sorting. Okay. All right. Please raise your hand if you do pivot tables using the query formula. Okay. Janet. Okay. Janet, this one's for you. Please raise your hand if you are an expert in Google Forms and Google Sheets and you would like to take over this presentation for me. Okay. All right. We'll go. I wouldn't consider myself a power user of forms or sheets, but I have certainly bumped around a lot and learned a lot of useful stuff. And I'm excited about the opportunity to share what I know, to learn from you guys too. So feel free at any point to chime in and tell me new ways of doing things or something else we could extend what I'm sharing. You can extend what you're learning too. Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. A quick question: when do you guys use Google Forms for your chapters? What occasions? Like what kind of information are you collecting?
I use it to collect the chapter reports. So each chapter quarterly reports different things to me. So that's what I use it for mostly.
Okay, great. What about others?
Our junior branch has started using it for their elections every year for interest level. And then we also just use it for general interest. We sometimes, especially when we're at a big event, like, one of our mini camps or something, we'll have that, our president created a just a quick Google survey of like, what ages are your kids and do you have any previous experience and stuff? So we use that pretty regularly.
Okay, great. Program interest, Alexia, I think maybe you chatted in that just like general survey. Okay, great. So we've used it also registration for events and debrief after the programs. And we've got a couple other forms too. And at the end of the program, I'm going to share a link for you. I've started a Google Forms bank, and we benefited from somebody else. We piggybacked on somebody else's debrief form in this most recent year. And I'd love to just make it so that we aren't reinventing the wheel, that we're all, okay, Julie likes the debrief on Google Forms. So I'm creating a bank, and I'd love for you guys to contribute to that too. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes talking about the qualities of a good Google form. Coming from the perspective of the person who's going to be on the back end working with the data, what are some things we should be thinking of as we make a Google form?
You mean like data collected or?
Yeah, like, so it's really, I think my point that I'm trying to drive home here is about beginning with the end in mind. So how do we make sure we have really good data, and or what describe the quality of the data that we would collect, that we're trying to collect? Comprehensive, right? I mean, we've done Google Forms where we've left out a key part, like who was the name of the person who was attending, right? Like, so we got RSVPs, we wouldn't know who they were coming from. Other things that I think of, Janet, maybe you have something to contribute. You came off mute.
Select from a list of things so that you can analyze that list and not leave it like completely open to random text.
Love that. We're restricting the responses so that you can't, if you're asking, which program you're interested in, it would be great to restrict it so that if you're interested in a youth meeting in Italy, that you just select from a drop down, instead of some people writing Italy, some people writing YM Italy, some people writing, you get varied responses when you're really saying the same thing. So that's a great contribution. What about getting data at the level that is most granular that you're going to want to work with it? So an easy example is name. If you ask for, when you're thinking about the input, do you want to collect the first name and the last name separately, or do you want to put them together? And it may vary depending on the use for your particular form, but it's just the kind of thing that we want to think about. So again, like I said, I encourage everybody to begin with the end in mind. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is where things get really wild for me. Sometimes I'm not very good at this, but we're gonna see what we can do here. We're gonna go to Google. Whoops, not that. I'm gonna share the screen. Okay, and let's see. There we go. I'm going to create a new Google form, and I think there was only one participant who had not. Guys, how do I get this little bar to go away so I can get to does anybody see the bar I'm looking? Oh, there we go.
I was gonna say, you're the only one that sees that. You can move
it. Okay. So one way to create a form is to go to forms.google.com. And we just create a new form. Just say blank form. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and I'm sorry for our one participant who has not created a Google form before. I will happily go through a lot of the details of creating a Google form for anybody who needs some extra support getting started. But I'm going to do kind of a slide over of Google Forms so that we can then get to the responses and some of the queries and formulas that I have found really helpful on the back end when doing the analyzing. So here we have a new form, and we can name the form. Let's call this feedback for CIM day 2. And let's look here real quick so that we're all aware of the universe of options that are available to us for the type of question. We have multiple choice. Everybody knows what multiple choice is. We have short answer. As Janet pointed out, the free form can be a little squirrely depending on how you want to analyze it. If you allow for short answer, you're going to get all sorts of stuff, so it makes it harder to analyze, but it's appropriate in some instances. Paragraph, just a longer answer. Checkboxes allows for multiple selections. So if you gauge, what committee are you interested in volunteering with, you could have lots of options and they can check multiple options, whereas multiple choice, you can only check one option. Drop down, we talked about this. Janet mentioned being able to restrict your answer, and so that would limit the respondent to just choosing from the universe of options that you give them. File upload, we have found this one super helpful. You can, let's see, I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, so file upload allows you to ask for a form to be uploaded or some sort of, I remember a while back we needed vaccine cards. And so when people registered for our event, we said upload a photo of your vaccine card, and it went to a shared Google Drive, which was a great way to collect information. So that's available to you as well. Then there's linear scale, on a scale of 1 to 5, how did you experience this? And then there's multiple choice grid and checkbox grid. They are similar types of questions. The multiple choice grid, so a multiple choice grid may say, it can be similar to a linear scale. For example, you could say, please rate these 10 qualities. How did you experience Heather Morgan's presentation on these 10 qualities? And you can choose one selection per row. So 1 through 5 on each row. Checkbox grid is more of the experience that you have with a doodle poll, where you can choose, you put your name there and you can choose multiple times that are available to you. So it's just whether you want to have one response per row or multiple responses per row, you'll choose multiple choice grid or checkbox grid. Okay, so that's just a quick high level overview of the types of questions you can ask. And I encourage you to be really thoughtful in the questions that you ask and what it is you're trying to get to on the back end. One thing to note is that you can require a question be answered by just using this little toggle here, and or not required to be answered depending on your needs. But again, I encourage you to be thoughtful about that. Okay, so there are options to customize the theme, add-ons. This is what you can click this to see what the form would look like for someone who's responding to the form. And then this is where you collect your responses. And so we're going to jump right in to the response collection and how to work with that data. So once you create the form, you can go over to the responses tab, click link to sheets, and it will create a document where you can receive all of the information that is coming from your Google form. It's important to know as responses come in, you can go right here to Google Forms and you can see responses, and they look pretty good. There's charts and graphs and all that good stuff right here in Google. But if you want a little more opportunity to analyze, you can use this link to Google Sheets, and so it's collected in spreadsheet form. There are also settings that you should just be aware of. I encourage everybody, this tool is so easy. It looks a little, it can be a little intimidating the first time you use it, but you can click through these and you can send specific responses to people. You can say, thank you for your RSVP. Here are the details of the event again. So there's just a lot of really cool stuff that you can do here. One other thing I should mention, you can customize the theme, and as a data person, I'm less interested in the theme, but it is really important to increase engagement. And I'm not particularly interested in it, nor am I that great at it, but I understand how important it is. And we have people in our chapter who are great at this kind of stuff. So this is where that, teamwork makes the dream work comes into play. And so you may want to share this form with somebody else so that they can work on customizing it and bringing in the CISV logo and making it look all very cool. So you can do that by, let's see. Here we go. Add collaborators here. And you can give other people in your organization rights, and you can even transfer ownership if you want to. But just know that you can do that. And that's one of the things that makes Google Forms so great, is the ability to add collaborators. Okay, so we have done a really quick drive-by on the form. Does anybody, I'm going to make this gallery view so I can see everybody. I want to give a pause for an opportunity to ask questions on the forms themselves. No questions on the forms?
And Heather, I might add, oh, go ahead. Somebody have a question? Okay, I might add, I forget how many ways we use Google Forms, but if the other chapters could recognize some of the value in that, then maybe they would have more questions on how to set that up or use. So your bank would come in helpful in that. But like you said, we did the COVID card. When we did our registration for mini camp, we incorporated all of the things you need to have so that we did like the photo release so that we got their approval and we had it in writing and we didn't have to collect it. So from the time Julie and I did mini camp and we had to collect everybody's individual forms to the time that we automated everything in our registration, including I don't know the number of the form, but where they go through and they go through their behaviors, what is that, R7? We had those in there for both the participant, and the parent, so that we could have everything documented that they went through and accepted it. And we weren't collecting paperwork when we got there or looking for people's paper. And then the other way we use it a lot is our expense reimbursement tracking, so that they attach their receipts to that. And then Heather has just changed that so that we can also get in-kind contributions, so we can start tracking both of those. And the receipt thing works great because it triggers the notification on the end for the treasurer, and he can write the check and he has the receipt and it all gets filed. So it's making a lot of our other end paperwork and for people getting reimbursed easier. So just some other thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicole. That's very helpful. Julie?
Yeah, and when we did it pre-Heather, and we did mini camp, there was a big long line of people, and they all had maybe the COVID cards, and then they all had all their stuff, and it took forever for the, what I mean, because 2 people are checking them in. And then this year, it was just awesome. It was great. I mean, this is the way to go.
Joanna?
Yeah, so I really appreciate this. And luckily, I'm in a chapter where there are techier people who do most of this. But I guess I'm just wondering with Nicole and Julie, like what you're talking about, is there any way to actually capture someone's signature? Like, is there any way of knowing for certain, right, that it actually was that person who filled out that form? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
We know that we know the email address and it has a timestamp as well.
But that's the only, there's no like,
there's no wet signature.
Like DocuSign type. Okay.
One thing you can enable is making them sign in with a Gmail account, and that'll force them to go through that, but then they need to have a Gmail account.
Right.
Well, and the other thing you can do is you can link the PDF so that they could get it, and then they could sign it so that it's legitimate and upload it. So that you could make that a little bit more restricted. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't want to burst anything against Google Forms, and I'm not, because it's easy and accessible and people do this a lot. But you can also do most of these things in Gravity Forms in your WordPress website, just so you know. And I think they do have a signature block where you can sign.
And we used to use that more, Janet, before, but we didn't have as many people that could access and set it up.
Right. I said Google Forms is very accessible and it's very easy. So I'm not going to tell people, oh, you should be using your WordPress site. It just has a bit of an integrated look, and you know, it can do the signature, I think. So
Okay, so thank you all. Next thing I want to do is, let's see, let me move this over here. Okay, I want to show you our debrief form and the output from the debrief form and how we made it more usable. And then I want to spend we may not have a lot of time left, but I want to show you some queries. So if there's any part of this that you want to do a deeper dive on, I very much invite your collaboration. Call me, reach out anytime. I'm happy to help. So these are our form responses. One thing I didn't mention in the form, you can do dynamic conditional questions. And so if you answer yes to a question, it can send you down one pathway of questions. If you answer no, it sends you down another pathway, which is great. But what it gets you is if you have a lot of branches, it gets you a really unwieldy response sheet. And it can be, 100 columns wide, the responses that you're looking at. What you see right here is information we collected from debrief. I've anonymized it. That's why you don't see any email addresses. I've taken them out and I've made up new names, and I've taken out phone numbers. But what you can see is that we collected all this information. We gave the user a really dynamic experience. They only answered questions that pertain to them. And you can see, we're going to scroll through here. I mean, this goes all the way out to CE. So we're looking at, 70 fields here. And what I did was use some very simple queries. The formula is called a query formula, and I made it very easy to digest the information, depending on whether you wanted to focus in on Village Italy or Village Germany, or whether you were a JC or a leader. And so you can see here that this is just showing information from Village Italy. This tab just shows information for Germany, youth meeting, JC, leader, so on. And this is the part that is exciting to me, and I'm sad that it's 12:54. This is the cool stuff. This is where you can really make a difference in collecting your information, but you have to be umbilically connected to how you set up the form in the first place. So it is important to think about Google Forms as well. So what I've done is I've put together the main formula that I would encourage you to think of using is a query formula. And the query formula is very powerful and very easy. It may be a little intimidating at first, but once you start going, you can do some Google research, and you'll love it too. We can start a little fan club or something. But so you can, with the query function, you can filter data, you can sort data, you can select specific data, you can aggregate it, you can do pivot tables, you can use a combination of conditions. And so I'm going to show you a couple of them. This is just some sample data that I have. It is pulled from the internet. Student name, gender, class level. You can see that. With using this very simple formula, we can produce a result where we are just looking at that same list that we saw in the data tab, and we're just seeing a result where the gender equals female. And the syntax here is it's query, then I say which data I'm pulling from. That's pulling from the data tab columns A through F. And then I write a little sentence and I say, select, this star means everything. Select everything where column B equals female. This one here indicates that we have a header row. We can sort data. I can say, select everything in a table, but order it by column C in descending order. I can select just specific columns of the data set. And maybe different people in your organization have, these subsets and cuts of data may be helpful for people. You can also aggregate data. So here I said, let's just see how many rows of data we have for each gender, 15 female, 15 male. You can combine conditions. So here I've said, give me everything where the gender is male and the major is art. And then this one is a pivot table. If anybody's familiar with pivot tables, you can also pivot your data using a simple query. And these are very powerful and makes it really easy to whip around in your data without having to use any graphical interfaces. And it also allows you to serve up to folks in your chapter the exact piece of information they need without having to go through 70 columns of data. Last thing that I want to leave you with is, one last thing before we get to the wrap up. There's also a formula called import range, which I find very helpful. And you basically can pull from a different Google Sheet any sort of information you want. And so it doesn't have to be within the same Google Sheet. You can also use the import range formula to pull from a different spreadsheet that's sort of a different URL. So I just wanted you to have awareness to that too. Okay, we have 2 minutes left, and I just wanted to share with you some resources that I have. Let me go here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here are the resources that I wanted to share with you. benlcollins.com. When I do my Google searches, they very often end up going back to Ben Collins, benlcollins.com. It's a great place to learn more about Google Sheets. He is awesome. I've got the examples from today that we just flew through with the query examples. I've got a Google Doc that I've shared. It's open to the public. You can link to it, or you can use the QR code on the top on the left side. And then also I mentioned the Google Form Bank. You can also access that using the link that's on the screen, which I know you can't really click when you're on screen. I can distribute this presentation too for clickability, but also the QR code at the top on the right. And then you can also, if you want to contribute any forms that you have to the Google Form Bank, I would love to have those. Just email them to me at smokymountaincisv.finance@gmail.com. And then also I would love to collaborate on any of this stuff at any point. So I just would invite your connection. Okay,